Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Rei-Lin bringing you another Armored Warfare Premium Tank review. This time it's the Tier 6 BMPT Terminator. You could only get this tank when you bought one of the founder packs before the game released, and I think it's probably one of the best Tier 6s out there, especially if you're into making a lot of money and getting a lot of experience and generating a lot of hate for yourself because of how good this thing actually is. And if you don't want to listen to me talk about the statistics on this tank, you can click at the top of your screen, go right to the replay. It's actually a little bit of a fun replay that I got out of this, and you can see exactly why this thing is so good, in my eyes at least. Anyway, for the rest of us, let's talk about this tank. Essentially what you have here is you got this weird turret with rockets on the top and a T-72A hull. And if we check out the T-72A statistically, and we check out the armor, 250, 160 on the T-72A's hull, and 248, 165, 80. So while the T-72 has only 2 millimeters more in the front, it actually has 65 more and 20 more millimeters of armor on the Terminator on the sides and the rear, and the hull modifiers are actually better overall on the Terminator. Obviously, the T-72A does have a much better turret because this is an unmanned turret. There's nobody sitting in that. It's basically just some rockets and machine guns on this thing. But keeping in mind that this is an unmanned turret, any damage that this thing takes on the turret is basically cut in half. It does not do full damage when you shoot it in the turret. So that is another advantage compared to the T-72A. So essentially you have a main battle tank hull and this weird kind of turret on the top that takes half damage from a lot of shots. Now the damage is only 50 per shot, but this is an auto cannon. This thing loads 40 rounds per clip and you can carry 600 rounds. This thing can do a lot of damage before you ever come close to running out of ammunition. It's also got 120 millimeters of penetration. With autocannons, you don't do a lot of damage per shot, and you don't get much penetration per shot either, and that's mainly because these tanks are not built to ever go toe-to-toe with anything that has armor. You have some speed, you have some maneuverability, you have some view range, you have some camouflage. You're kind of a well-rounded light tank. Essentially, you are a flanking tank. You want to get behind the enemy, you want to get to the side of enemy tanks, and single out, if you can, light tanks and other lightly armored vehicles, artillery, tank destroyers, anything you can. Because once you unload a full clip into somebody, they're either dead or almost dead. This thing can do a lot of damage very quickly, and you can see by the damage per minute, 7,228. That is extremely good for a tier 6 of any kind. This thing really puts the damage per minute to use. The hit points are really low. At 1,100, you're essentially 3 shots away from being dead, just completely dead. This thing is not built to take much damage. It can take punishment, but you can't take actual direct hits. From any tier 6, basically 3 shots from almost anything is going to put you down for the count. But as we said, the whole armor, 248 at the front, 165 at the side, and 80 at the rear. For most anything below tier 6, they're going to have a hell of a time trying to actually do any damage if they are shooting you in the hull. And as you can see, there is a lot of spaced armor on this thing. There's a lot of ERA on the sides. You got caged armor back here on the rear. So basically anything shooting heat at you, anything shooting missiles at you, whether it's in the back or on the side, it's going to do nothing. It's going to blow some of your plates off and make you vulnerable to follow-up attacks, but as long as you play careful, you can take a lot of damage in this thing, and there's nothing the enemy can do to you if they're firing heat or rockets and they're hitting you in your spaced armor. It's just not going to do anything. But your armor is actually much better because you have very high modifiers, especially in the rear, 2.8. So this is much better armor than you think it is. Just looking at the numbers. Now the turret has pretty much no armor, 45, 35, and 30, and the modifiers are all 1, so that's what you get on the turret. But as I mentioned, all these turrets do is take half damage from pretty much any damage you shoot at them. They're just unmanned, so they don't take full damage. Now, you can break the gun, you can break the gun sights, you can break all kinds of stuff on this thing's turret just by shooting it in the turret, but don't think that that's going to slow down how much he can kill you by putting out 7,228 damage per minute. The max speed is almost 65 kilometers an hour. That's really good for an AFV. 0 to 32 kilometers an hour only takes 5.7 seconds, so it's not the speediest thing to get up to that top speed, but it's not anything main battle tank sluggish. Most main battle tanks are 6.5 to 7 seconds or more just to get to 32 kilometers. If you're going down any kind of down slope, this thing actually picks up speed really well, and it's able to maintain it because it feels like the ground resistance on this tank are pretty good. The camouflage is at 0.23, which is about average for an AFV of tier 6. It's a little bit above that because I do have a paint job here with my camouflage on there. So it's a little bit better than it would be if you didn't have that, but it's still above average for camouflage. The view range, 465 meters, which is already really good. One thing about these AFVs, especially the Terminator, is if you sit still for over 3 seconds, your view range goes up. So there are times where I'm on maps, especially in PvE, where I can see almost the entire map just from sitting still. And that's kind of how you want to play these tanks. You want to get to a spot using your speed that's going to be on the flanks or the sides of enemy tanks. Sit in a bush with your pretty damn good camouflage and just light people up and spot for your team. AFVs have the ability to lock onto a target that's within their view range, and that target will then take full damage from any shells that come in for as long as it lasts. You designate the target, and any enemy that has a range on their shells, you're just going to do max damage. That's really useful for some very good burst damage, especially if you mark a target and then you unload with this thing. All of your shots are going to do the maximum damage range of the shell. So, moving on, the cannon depression is really good. It's 8 degrees. That's really good. So there's a lot of AFVs that don't even have 8 degrees. The Romka 99, which is the tier 8 version of this tank, doesn't even have 8 degrees, and it has 8 degrees of the rear. So no matter where the enemy is, no matter where you're facing, you're going to be able to shoot stuff. Turret traverse, pretty good, 45 degrees a second. That's not exactly the speediest of turret traverse, but it's far from being slow. It's got a reload time of a flat 9 seconds. Most of the AFVs have around 9 seconds on their reload. Most of the other Terminator, basically the Terminator 2, has 9 seconds. The accuracy spread is also really good for an autocannon at 0.06. However, you have to remember, this is for a single shot. Every time you shoot, if you decide to hold down the left mouse button and just go full automatic on this thing, the bloom is going to go crazy. You're not going to maintain 0.06 accuracy if you're firing several shots in a row. But if you're close enough, that really isn't going to be a factor. If you pull up right behind them and unload your gun, the accuracy is not going to matter. Targeting time is 2 seconds. That's not bad. 2 seconds isn't bad. This thing has the armor, especially to take a few hits and shrug off some damage with the armor that it has. So it doesn't have that much of a trouble targeting. So 2 seconds isn't bad. It's not great. It's not light tank. It's not 1.5 seconds and stuff like that, but it's not bad. Statistically, that is the Terminator, and a lot of people just don't understand how to deal with these tanks, and that's why it seems like it's so frustrating. There are tanks like the BMPs and the BMDs that only get high explosive. Something like a Scorpion, for example, would only get high explosive. It's just not going to do anything to this. Heat isn't going to do anything. You can hit it with heat in the turret, but don't expect to do a lot of damage if you're shooting just the turret. You have a driver's hatch right here that you can shoot, and if you have missiles, most tanks that have missiles can shoot more than one missile per volley. If you hit anywhere on the side with the first missile, that's going to destroy wherever you shot. So it's going to blow these plates off. And after that, it's going to take full damage. You can kill the Terminator and 2 missiles from another Terminator as long as you hit the first missile and then hit the next 2 in the same place. From full health, you'll kill it. It's not that hard to deal with these. But first time seeing it, and a lot of people just don't like fighting them because they are pretty tough. Commander and crew. Of course, I'm using Maximilian. I'd probably go with Sabrina because she is sort of the AFV guru / light tank guru. She improves your camouflage. She improves your aim speed. It's just, I would use Sabrina. There are a couple of other commanders that have more skills that have to do with missiles. So if you're big into using the Terminator as a missile launcher sort of tank, you might pick that commander up. I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head which one it is, but if you don't have Maximilian, you could go with Sabrina. She's kind of the well-rounded light tank AFE commander. Now for the crew, I wanted accuracy on the move with this tank. It is a moving platform. You have the speed, and you definitely have hull traverse and everything to make this a very mobile platform. You can't sit still an entire map unless the enemy team, whether it's PvE or PvP, is just sitting in front of your guns and they're turning their sides and their ass ends to you, which probably isn't going to happen that often. But if you have to fire on the move, this is one of the advantages of an autocannon. You can basically auto lock onto a target while you're moving and just open fire just to get a few damaging shots in. You will actually make a lot of damage, especially if the target doesn't know you're there, or if they're not a main battle tank or anything with any kind of armor. Light tanks, it doesn't matter where you shoot them with an autocannon. It may just go through, and there's no disadvantage to that. So I made the accuracy on the move just a little bit better. And of course I took off-road driving because I think off-road driving is the best skill for your driver no matter what tank you're driving. This thing is a little bit sluggish, getting up to 32 kilometers an hour. I figured that no matter what train I'm on, it might as well be a little bit better. Quick draw, aim speed improved by 10%. Everyone can use more aim speed. The faster you aim, the faster you can shoot, the more accurate you are, the less you're exposed. So quick draw is what I went for. Marksman, when the circle is at its smallest. Now, for me, you could switch this out with shoot from the hip, which is when the accuracy is at its largest. That will work so that when you're going full automatic and just holding the mouse button down, this will make the accuracy circle not go as big as if you wouldn't have the skill. However, I decided to start my peak accuracy a little bit better so that I could fire for longer at the start before my accuracy starts getting so poor that I have to stop. So it's basically one or the other. If you know you're going to unload a full clip at any kind of significant range, over 200 meters, for example, you might go with shoot from the hip so that the circle is not going to bloom up as much as it would without it. But I go the opposite way and allow myself to aim because I'm generally sitting in the back. I'm not worried about how the aim time. I'm already zeroed in so that I can get off several shots. I could probably shoot nearly half of my clip before the bloom gets so bad using marksman that I actually have to stop and let the aim circle calm itself down. So that is personal preference. Ammo types. You get basically two ammo types. You get some high explosive and you get armor piercing. I played around with the high explosive. High explosive was good before they fixed the high explosive. It used to be that you could load this tank up with a bunch of high explosive, use some commander skills that increased how much explosive damage you did, and wreck every freaking module on any tank regardless of how much armor it had, because high explosive just did damage as long as it hit something on the enemy tank. It didn't matter what it was. Well, they fixed a lot of that, so now your high explosive generally just doesn't do enough damage for it to be useful at all. Now, if you PvP an awful lot, you might want to take maybe one clip of high explosive just so that you're guaranteed to reset a cap or something like that. I generally don't PvP, and even if I did, I don't think I would even waste any time. I played around taking bits and pieces of both. I don't think the high explosive is generally worth it. Now you have a pool 2 here. It does get 20 anti-guided missiles, and you get 4 of them per clip. So you get to sit still for 5 seconds to allow this thing to aim, and then you get a lot of damage. 398 damage with 668 millimeters of penetration. That's generally enough to go through almost anything frontally, including challengers, if you know where you're shooting. So if you can aim for weak spots with this, but you're going to have to sit still. You have to sit perfectly still and guide these missiles. So before you load these up and realize that you can switch between your missiles and your normal shells, it's got a 3-second delay swapping between them, and I do that a lot. I use the missiles in conjunction with the armor piercing to wreck some tanks if I have to face heavy tanks, main battle tanks, or any kind of tank that's got a lot of armor in the front. I generally switch to the missiles, and I suggest you do too. There's no downside to not loading up all 20 of your anti-guided missiles because there's nothing else to load. Consumables, as always, I'm taking the spare parts, the energy drink, and the medical kit. You could always swap those out to save money with the repair kit and the first aid kit and the protein bar. Later patches, I've heard that they're going to be changing how easy it is to catch tanks on fire, so the fire extinguishers may become something you want to take with you once that goes live. But that is in the future. It's not now. I rarely ever get caught on fire in any tank, whether I'm PvPing or PvEing, but I generally PvE, so I don't even worry about the fires. If you are going to PvE, though, I suggest the low, mid, or high tier field maintenance kit. It restores 20% of your health and all of your ammunition. On longer maps, Rolling Thunder, for example, you might get low on your ammunition. It carries 600 rounds and you're firing 40 per clip. So after maybe 5 or 6 reloads, you might be getting low on ammo. And then, the last thing you want is to actually run completely out of your armor piercing and only have missiles. Now, I suggest that throughout any kind of match that you play that you're trying to swap back and forth between the missiles and your armor piercing. It really makes running out of ammo much less of a factor. But in PvE, generally you might run low. This will give you all your ammunition back. For 12,000 credits, it's really worth it to make sure you stay in the game able to do damage. Retrofits. I go with Chrome Barrel for a damage increase and increases my minimum accuracy. So right there, the Chrome Barrel is already helping with the accuracy when I'm firing full auto. Experimental Propellant, 7.5% more damage, is always better no matter what tank you're driving. Even autocannons can benefit from doing more damage per shot. And this thing does get a technology slot. It gets 2 universals and a tech slot. I'm just going with the intercom systems to increase the crew skills so that their aim speed is better, off-road driving skill is better, turret traverse speed, everything gets better with an increase to your crew skills, and 6.25% is something that helps the overall ability of your tank. So that is, in a nutshell, the BMPT Terminator. And do I think it's worth it? I definitely think this is one of the best tier 6s. It is a hell of a lot of fun in PvP or in PvE. Now, if you're up against people that are in tier 8s, they generally will have enough penetration to go through anywhere that they're going to shoot unless it's a well-angled front. From the sides, this thing isn't that good against high penetration guns. However, because you're not necessarily a frontline fighter, unless you have to be, you're more of a sit in the bush, sit in the back, designate targets, spot for your team, tank. That isn't always an issue. Now, if your team gets overrun, there's nothing you can do. But you can generally put out well over 3 to 6 or 7,000 damage in a game, even in PvP, just because of the nature of the autocannons. You catch 2 or 3 tanks by surprise in the side, or a light tank rolling through trying to scout. You can open up on them. You can easily tear through any tank. One way to burst damage a tank is that you would mark a tank that doesn't know you're there, pull in behind them, and just unload your full clip. You can pretty much take down any tier 6 and most tier 7s if you designate the target so that every shot you put into them is doing 100% of its maximum damage every single shot. So that's 40 shells at about 60 damage per shell. You do the math. It's a lot of damage. And there's really nothing that the enemy tank can do about it because you unload that clip in about 3 to 4 seconds. So this thing is extremely good. If they make this part of a package within the year exclusive from the Founders Pack, I would definitely pick it up. After about a year, this thing is supposed to go on sale no matter what. Whether they put it into the dealer tree or not, I'm not sure. But if you get a chance to get one of these, definitely pick it up. It's definitely worth it. If you look at the price, 3,250 gold is what it's going to run you, assuming that price stays consistent. which is the same price for pretty much all of the tier 6s in the game. So it's going to run somewhere between $15 and $20. If it's part of a package deal, you may end up getting the Terminator plus an RDF light tank or a Terminator plus a VFM. It's hard to say, but it's definitely worth it. If you like this autocannon stuff, this is probably one of the best autocannon lines you can get. The Romka 99 and the Terminator 2, the tier 9 of this tank, are also extremely good tanks. They're just a lot of fun. People rage an awful lot because of this tank being so tough and easy to use. In PvE, you can easily pull 10 to 20,000 damage a PvE game, especially in hard mode. Anyway, that is the Terminator, and I've got a pretty good replay I wanted to show you. I hope you enjoy it. I actually just barely survive, and you can see just why people hate this thing. The RNG I get in this replay is actually kind of funny. Hope you enjoy it. I'll see you on the battlefield. And here we are on the Kodiak map. This is a slightly older replay towards the end of December's when I actually got into this game. This is probably one of the luckiest games I've ever had in the Terminator, and you're going to see why. We don't really have anything except a chieftain on our team that is a heavy tank. Everything else is somewhat lightly armored, and even though I have a heavy tank hull, it's not that reliable once you start getting tier 7s and 8s and 9s shooting at you. At this point, I'm just kind of trying to mow down as much as I can. I didn't have that much left in my clip, but Bagel Panzers don't have really any armor, so I just went ahead and hit the reload there. Knew I could chew through the rest of his health, but all this stuff in the way, and I knew, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to kill the looks like a Romka 99 coming along behind all that stuff. So I just started to shoot all the rubble and cars out of my way and my teammates' way, so they wouldn't have to waste shells blowing stuff up. It's actually kind of useful for the autocannons because even though there's all the junk in your way, it only takes one shell from an autocannon to actually destroy it, which is kind of nice. The cap is pretty much safe at this point. So we just kind of I go ahead and move up. Now the middle is usually a bad place to be sitting because a lot of tanks tend to come up this way, but my team is kind of hanging back, which is good. On this map, it's real easy to get overconfident and push too far up the right side and spawn a lot of tanks. But thankfully, they're hanging back for now. But we're about to get sort of overrun here in the cap. Now usually a few things happen when the bots start to move down towards the cap, especially once it moves up to the second spot, which is around where all these helicopters are. My team decided to move up like this a little bit too soon, in my opinion. We should have waited and kind of moved a little bit more together. But you see me here flubbing the missile shots. I get a couple to go in, but then the ones on my left tube seem to just kind of go right over the top of this Leo. And that's kind of bad because he can do a lot of damage to me. He's got a high enough penetration. And then more stuff spawns on my left, and again, it's more... thankfully, it's just a BMP, who does not have enough armor to resist my shells. I actually bounced a Stingray there, it looked like, which is useful. So you can bounce, and it looks like the BMP is now shooting heat at me, which is pretty much useless against the Terminator because of the ERA on the side. Now here's where we start kind of getting in trouble. Everyone kind of pushed up because they were like, oh, tanks, kill. Unfortunately, it's a lot more tanks than we have people focus firing on certain tanks, which would help, but we get a lot of main battle tanks spawning. I've got a T-72A, got an Ariete coming here. Looks like a T-90 up to the north somewhat. I start marking targets mainly for my team, but I was hoping that I could get more damage into the side. When I realized that's just not going to work, I back off because I just already have taken a lot of damage. I'm already half-life. I still have a repair kit, but I'm trying not to use that immediately just because I know I can take at least one hit from almost anything before I have to use it. But now I'm getting to the point where I could be killed I'm starting to think maybe it would be a good idea to fix myself, get some health back. Decided to swing out this way. I was thinking of going for the objective, but I thought the Centauro behind me, being that he's even faster than I am as a tank destroyer, would go out there and get the objective. See, I'm thinking about it right now, but then I noticed that we've already lost 2 teammates, and maybe I should head back this way and circle behind these enemy tanks and try to support my team. And then I'm noticing there's a lot of stuff that has now spawned up to the north, and I really don't want to pull out here and be giving my side to any of them. But I put in as much fire as I can. My team is trying to support, but there's just a lot of tanks, a lot of firepower. Of course, artillery. I try to shoot a missile down through there to get him, and my teammate kills it as the missile's on the way. Oh yeah, alright, Chieftain is down. We're about to go down another teammate here in just a minute. They're pushing up and they're trying to support. I'm trying to do as best as I can, sniping this hatch of the BMD. And then we really shouldn't have pushed over this way, to be honest. I mean, the cap is about to swap, and that's a lot of main battle tanks that just spawned. Expeditionary tank is over there. Looks like a T-90. Another Leo. You know, there's absolutely nothing I can do. I go ahead and I mark him just so he can take some extra damage, but instantly we just lost 2 more people, and now I'm alone. I don't immediately notice that I'm alone until after I take a few missiles, shoot him at this A6, trying to do some damage while the extra damage boost is up. I do hit him a few times, and then I just realized, oh great, I'm by myself. And that's a lot of main battle tanks that I'm just not going to be able to take down alone. I pop my smoke so I can try to back up and get this hill between me and them. Thankfully, none of them actually took any shots at me. But now the camp has moved, and there's already enemy tanks that have spawned there and are moving. I start to head towards that, and I get tracked. Thankfully, I skid a little bit forward. And it may look like I'm not actually shooting, even though I'm ready to shoot. I'm actually marking the target. You just can't see the mark going up, because I know the chance that I can actually 100 to 0 the expeditionary tank with 1 clip. I have a chance to do it, but I decided I might as well go ahead and mark him so I get the full damage range on my shell. I did very closely dodged a shot right there. Start taking damage from the side as I'm trying to get over here and into this dip and get some cover from the left. Thankfully, it's looks like a Terminator 2. It's a BMPT-72, but thankfully my side armor held up to his autocannon. But I'm trying to decap as quickly as I can. You can see 1 second left, 0 seconds left, and in the nick of time, I do save the game and reset the cap. But it's not completely reset. I've got to do some damage to this Terminator 2. So I start putting some shells in there, but his autocannon does track me, and I've already used my repair kit. I'm basically sitting here. There's incoming fire from my left, but they're bad shots, and there's a little bit of cover there. I took another shot from the left. Not sure if it was the Leo or whoever it was. It must have been firing heat, because I would have died if it was anybody firing armor piercing for sure. At this point, I'm just trying to get my missiles up, because I'm facing stuff from the front. I want to make sure to get some damage in. This is a Ramka 99. 4 missiles. Almost take him down completely, but I just reload my autocannon and finish him off. Now at this point, I did not see that we only had another 28 seconds or so before we won the match. I was more worried that that tank that was sitting in the cap was going to end up capping fully. I was just about to pull all the way up, and then a frickin' Stingray pulls up, and I'm like, oh crap, I am dead. There's just no way. He's aimed at me. He's ready to go. And for some reason, he either missed his shell or he didn't fire at all, which is lucky for me, because it lets me kill him. And then just as I decide to get up there and finish off... Oh, what happened? Oh my goodness, we won. It was a miracle game there. That is the lowest I've ever been. 16,000, almost 17,000 reputation, 133,000 credits. Ended up obviously being the top of the team by about 3 times over the second player. Damage mitigated about 2,500 or so. That's not bad. That is not bad in a tank that only has 1,100 health to begin with. So, as you can see, the Terminator is a pain in the ass kind of tank. You can see exactly why people hate this thing. It can control all kinds of shells. It's almost immune to missiles and heat from the side and even in the rear. The autocannon is pretty accurate, does a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. It's fast, it's maneuverable. It's probably one of the best tier 6s, especially when it comes to autocannons. This was a founder pack tank, so you're not going to be able to buy it at least for a year, as long as Obsidian goes ahead and keeps to that schedule. If they put it into the dealer tree or just put it into a package between now and whenever, I would definitely pick this up. It's a lot of fun. It's probably one of the best premium tanks in the game, and hopefully you guys will be able to enjoy it at some point in the near future. Anyway, that is this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please press the like button down below. It really helps the channel out. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel, please click down at the bottom of your screen, and that'll give you all the latest updates every time I upload a new video, whether it's Armored Warfare, Blade and Soul, Black Desert, or coming soon, The Division. Anyway, that is all I have for you people. Take care, and I'll talk to you all next time.